When did you realize this could be something huge that's going to serve me way beyond the NFL and business?
When I was younger, a lot of people always say, man, you're 10 years ahead of your time. And I didn't know really what they meant, because even when I went to buy the trademarks and the rights to Lights Out, trademarks wasn't big in 2005, 2006. Right. Nobody was talking about it. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to do something, but I knew it all had to start with ownership and owning a name that I've earned when I was 16 years old. But I think that the dance and the mohawk and like everything just really tied into it, because for me on game days, it was like I get a chance to be Lights Out. And I always felt when I got off the field that Lights Out was much bigger than what I did on it, but I needed to do something in order to have it started from somewhere. Mm-hmm. Like put it on a map and then like let it live on its own. And that's what happened. It turned into something far bigger than me.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Nichols and Dimes Show. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. Today, we have a very special guest on the podcast, Shawne Lights Out Merriman, NFL legend for the San Diego Chargers. He's one of the best linebackers to ever play. I grew up a huge San Diego Chargers fan, and I had two favorite players. I actually start the podcast off telling them I had two favorite players, one offense, one defense, LaDainian, Tomlinson, and him. So this was a very special full circle moment for me to be able to have a conversation with Shawne and talk not only about his NFL career and athletic background, but his journey in entrepreneurship, which he has been super active in since his days playing in the league. He has Lights Out Xtreme Fighting, which is a fight promotion. We talk about his long-term goals for that, how he wants to differentiate in this category, how he is striving to be a feeder into the UFC. He's bringing tons of innovation and technology into it. He's implementing vertical integration with other businesses that he's doing, including his Lights Out TV streaming service. And he also has his Lights Out insurance business as well, and apparel, of course, for Lights Out. So we do talk about the Lights Out brand. One thing that really impresses me about Shawne is how he was so ahead of the game, even back when he was a player, before social media really took off. He had foresight into the power of personal branding and marketing way before a lot of the people in the mainstream figured it out. And he was seeking mentorship even back when he was a player with some of the top business people in the world. I also get into his relationships with some of his mentors and friends like Donald Trump and Dana White, and what he learned from these people and how he has applied those lessons into his businesses to be successful. We also talk about his background and interest in fighting. In his early days of fighting, he trained with Randy Couture. He grew up around a lot of boxing, and then he learned more about MMA over time and found ways to do combat training in a way that would support his football performance. So we cover a good range of things from football to fighting, into his businesses, his mentors, what he's learned along the way, what he wants to do going ahead, and then some stories from the NFL. Please subscribe to the Nichols and Dimes Show on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Follow Nichols and Dimes on Instagram. And now enjoy the episode with Shawne Merriman. Shawne Merriman, what's going on, man?
What's up, my man? How you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for meeting with me, man.
You got it. Absolutely.
This is a special full circle moment for me. I grew up a massive Chargers fan. I had two favorite players in the NFL, one offense, one defense, LaDainian, Tomlinson, and you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, you was telling me before we got on San Diego.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a lot of time. That's always going to be home for me.
Yeah.
You know, San Diego, man, is, you know, if I ever move back to California, it'd be San Diego.
Yeah.
Like I miss SD. I was spending time there this weekend, so yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you just hosted a extreme fight there recently, right?
Yeah, so we had a fight down from my MMA league, Lights Out Xtreme Fighting, at Casino Palma.
Yeah.
Right there next to Temecula, right in Palma. So it was crazy, man, because it was outside. So it was almost 2,000 people out there. It was you know what's crazy is we talked about it before. There's a lot of the fight business, a lot of the fight game, a lot of up and coming fighters are from San Diego.
Right.
So every time we go down there, we probably go down there like maybe twice a year. But we need to go down there more.
Yeah.
I mean, we really, really do, man. So we're looking forward to making some more things happen in San Diego.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It really is a cool community down there. And, you know, me being involved in the jiu-jitsu community down there, it's been very apparent to me how much is there. And I want to get into that at a deeper level from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, your business is, especially Lights Out Xtreme Fighting. But I want to start off with something that just I think is so impressive that you were so ahead of the game with, which is personal branding and marketing in general.
Yeah.
You got this going before social media was really a thing with Lights Out, right? So I want to understand, and you know, you've talked about the story a lot of how you got this name. You had a football game. You were 16 years old in high school, knocked out 4 guys in one game.
Yeah.
Lights out.
Yeah.
Shawne Merriman. And then you had your dance in the league. Like you had all kinds of things that were related to this tagline, right? And this nickname. What drove you? When did you realize this could be something huge that's going to serve me way beyond the NFL and business?
I think, so when I was younger, a lot of people always say, man, you're 10 years ahead of your time. They would always say that. Even when I was a player, I came in, drafted, at a young age. Yeah, one of the youngest drafted players ever. Right when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
But a lot of the older guys or older people in business, stuff like that, they will always say, man, you're 10 years ahead of your time. 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. And I didn't know really what they meant, because even when I went to buy the trademarks and the rights to Lights Out, that trademarks wasn't big in 2005, 2006. Right. Nobody was talking about it.
Is that when you bought it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I bought it from this company called PJ Salvage. There was a big pajama company in Irvine, California.
That's right.
And so, when I did it at the time, I didn't, a lot of people sit here and think, oh, I know exactly what I wanted. Like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to do something, but I knew it all had to start with ownership and owning a name that I've earned when I was 16 years old. But I think that the dance and the mohawk and like everything just really tied into it, because I was obviously a big WWE wrestling fan.
That's right.
Right. And I've always believed in like characters. So I think for me on game days, it was like I get a chance to be Lights Out. Right. And I always felt when I got off the field that Lights Out was much bigger than what I did on it, but I needed to do something in order to have it started from somewhere, like put it on a map and then like let it live on its own. And that's what happened. It turned into something far bigger than me, right? Yeah. Where you can't, if you're watching any sporting events, how many times do they say Lights Out? I mean, it's just, Steph Curry shooting the lights out, right? It's, this Lights Out game that an athlete played or whatever. So it just far exceeded anything that I built personally. And I always knew that they had that opportunity, that chance to do that. And that's where it kind of got me started thinking.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then along with the business opportunities and success that came later for you, you were very involved with entertainment.
Yeah.
Right. And that was also kind of, you stood out in that way, right? You had Fox and ESPN, and you were in the Kerry Hilson music video, "Knock You Down," right?
Yeah.
And WWE, like you said, you had a Nike ad, Entourage, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, you just found a way to get yourself out there. That's like the big message these days with content, marketing, business, all this stuff, right? That wasn't really figured out when you were doing this stuff. Was it? Yeah.
Trust me. I wish that I knew that it would be this big then, because I would have started tweaking and doing things a little bit differently. Like I would have got a lot more content during that period of time, right? Like all this stuff now, these Netflix documentaries or these these short form and long form like content things that, because during this process, man, it was a lot, right?
Yeah.
Some days I would leave practice. Like for example, I was selling Lights Out Apparel in this place called Sports Fevers in San Diego. They had like 9 stores in SoCal, in San Diego, all the way up to OC. And I would leave practice some days and I would go meet with the owner and check on sales of the Lights Out t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so learning how to manufacture product or work with buyers or retail. I did this when I was playing. And so again, you give me enough time, I'll figure it out. I'm like one of those. You give me enough time, I'll get the information, I'll get around somebody and I'll sit down with whoever's big in that industry. To sit down and ask questions. I've never been afraid, man, of asking questions, getting as much information as I could possible. And I'm not going to lie, it helped because I was, kind of Shawne Merriman, the NFL linebacker, right? Like that got me into a lot of meetings, or people say, come meet with me, right? And it can be somebody massive, guys who are worth hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, or, Fortune 100 companies that would CFOs, CEOs, CMOs. I'm like, hey man, I got a question, and I never took that for granted. Man. If somebody gave me a half an hour to an hour that day, man, I was even at my peak when I was at the highest in my game. Like if somebody, no matter who it was, if they gave me an hour out of their day, man, I was really, really appreciative of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And did you always see the bigger picture after football? Because a lot of athletes struggle, and military too. right? It's a hard transition to make. So did you actively think, hey, I'm setting myself up for the next step of my life?
Yeah. In fact, Doug Welling, who was the general manager of the Bills, I had my best game, one of my best games with the Bills, my very last game I played against the Jets.
Okay.
And I tore them up. You know, it was like 9 tackles, 3 TFLs, I went off.
Yeah, at the end of your career.
It was the last game of my career,
Yeah.
very last game. And then I remember having a conversation with him, and he wanted to re-sign me. And I didn't say anything, but I was looking at him like, man, I'm done. You know, I'm done because I've already had my mindset on what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And to have the opportunity to do, there is nothing like the Buffalo Bills fans, man. Like, I was scratching, don't get me wrong, I was scratching the screaming to go because I was like, man, I'm not trying to go to Buffalo. Not because of the city, but they wasn't that good at the time, record-wise. They had players, but their record wasn't good. So I didn't want to go. But, man, I got out there, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because you don't see fans like that and people like that. It was another ball game. So I would have re-signed to go, but the coaching staff left and everything left. And I said, you know what? I got a lot more to do outside of this game, and I wanted a head start on it. And so that's why I ended up just retiring and just moving on.
Wow. And back to what you were just saying about seeking mentorship from people, right? And being able to sit down with very successful people. There's one person in that category I wanted to ask about in particular I've heard you talk about, and it's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right? And it's somebody who, you know, politics completely aside, one of the great marketers and entertainers of our time.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just really curious. What did you learn from him that you applied to your businesses?
He, first of all, you know, people don't understand. Like, I take all the politics away, right? Vote for who the hell you want to. Like, I got a great relationship with him. I got a great relationship with the Trump family. Love them to death. And I'm wishing them all the best. But vote whoever. Like, I don't go down those lanes and telling people what to do and get political. But I'll tell you this. You know, he did something for me that he didn't have to do. During the off seasons, literally, I would go to his office at Trump Towers, and I would sit in his office, and we would talk. We would talk for hours. No matter, like, he was busy. He was shooting Apprentice around this time, so he was really busy.
Oh yeah.
So he had his regular business stuff, and then he had the shows and Apprentice. And sometimes when he was busy shooting, they'll be in a ballroom there, and I would just kind of wave on him, way to do this as I'm walking by. But what he did for me, I'm gonna tell you, was super cool. That I'm really, really thankful for it. He put a memo out to his staff to let them know that whenever I came in the building, to help me out with whatever I needed.
That's cool. Wow.
And I'll tell you why this was good, man, because I was super curious about business. I was super curious about licensing. You know, obviously, a lot of the hotels and casinos and stuff he does through licensing deals. A lot of his buildings and name rights and all this is all through licensing. So I learned a lot that way. The other side is just regular business, man, how to hold meetings and, you know, negotiation.
Yeah.
I've sat in some of those ballroom meetings and watched them negotiate, man.
Oh, wow. So you just were a fly on the wall.
Oh, man,
sometimes.
I was around.
Wow.
I was around quite a bit.
Well, how did he describe? Were you just sitting there to say, "Hey, this is my friend Shawne, and he's just gonna hang out"?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. It was almost like, you know, he runs everything. I mean, and you know, it's one of those things where, it was literally a memo put out that whenever I came there, and whatever I had questions with, and if he wasn't there to make sure I was taken care of, because it was multiple times that I didn't get a chance to meet with him because he was busy or doing something, but I was there to sit and do a licensing or a real estate deal or whatever meeting it was. I was just there a lot.
Wow. So, I mean, just a wide range of important business skills, it sounds like you just took away from him.
Dude, it's invaluable. And I'll tell anybody this, right? If you got a door or lane and somebody is super successful in what you're trying to do, and they give you their time, man, like, don't abuse it. Don't miss the opportunity. Because sometimes that information is just as good as them giving you however much money.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, because that information, what it does is it saves you from losing money.
Right.
You know, it kind of speeds you up. You put you ahead of the curve, because you got to remember, all those guys already made the mistakes.
Yeah.
So when they're telling you, hey, I did this and this is what worked for me, or I did this and it didn't work, you're like, okay, I'm not doing that. Right. I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And so now you just saved yourself some money. You saved yourself some time. And if they can pick up the phone and you can ask questions, dude, I mean, there's no MBA that or degree that you can get that's better than that, because these guys are already have done what you're trying to do.
100%. Would you take notes and stuff to retain the learnings or
No, I've never taken really notes or anything. Even when I was a player, man, coaches used to get on me about,
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, but I whatever it is, I got that.
Yeah.
But oh, trust me, I used to get chewed out a lot, dude, because I didn't write anything down. But I was fortunate to kind of have a good memory when it comes to that. But yeah, man, I just I've been fortunate because I've known some really, really successful people that if I hit them up or shoot them a text, I'm like, yeah, I'm in town, or I'd be around there. Do you got an hour? You got a half an hour? I can just pop in there, and it this can come from a big CEO or Fortune 100 company, or one of the biggest companies in the world. If I know somebody there and they reach out and they take the time, man, I've always appreciated that.
For sure. Yeah, it's amazing that you realize the value of that so early, right? And it's obviously serving you now. And just on that note, you're just talking about how coaches would chew you out for not taking notes in the league. I want to talk a little bit about football, right?
Yep.
And then we'll get back to business stuff, just because this is a special thing for me. That was a huge part of your life. And I'm curious, what was it like practicing with LT? What was your relationship like with him as a teammate?
Dude, so I got there literally about 2 weeks before the first preseason game. I didn't see anybody during the whole offseason because I had a contract negotiation issue we had. It was more so an injury clause.
Yeah.
And hey, if I come out there to mini camp, all season workouts, whatever, I get hurt, y'all still pay me, right? So we had a problem there. And we got that resolved, but it didn't happen until like 2 weeks before the first game. And so my first day, man, I'm seeing Phillip Rivers and these guys kind of say little things in the media. Well, I mean, not being there. Oh, he's a rookie, should be here.
Oh, damn.
And all this other stuff. And it wasn't negative. It was almost that you hear the chirping and they haven't seen you.
Yeah.
So they don't know you. And so if they knew me and knew that I was going to come ready to play, or I was going to be an asset to the team, I think it would have been different. But it did get under my skin, right? By seeing it, and you can't do anything about it. But I tell you, man, walking in the locker room, LT for me, it was like walking in and seeing Jordan in there.
Oh, wow.
For me personally, because here's a guy that's and people can argue all they want. I think he's top 2 or 3 running back of all time. Mm-hmm. You can juggle those around or whoever you want to put. I think he's up in that top 2 or 3.
Yep.
But seeing him on TV and then going and seeing him and he's right across, he's right there. And then they got to the point where I got a chance to watch him work. That's when it really, because you see what people do on game day, but you don't get a chance to see that Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
You don't see that Monday through Saturday. So when you see that, and you see this dude taking a handoff and just running 60 yards to the end zone or 50 yards to the end zone, full speed, over and over again, and doing that, it kind of sets a tone for the team. I had a bunch of them there, man. It really, I gave credit to, because when you hear about guys coming to the locker room, the real OGs, like I had them.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Neal, Antonio Gates, Jamal Williams, Nick Hardwick, Phillip, and Randall Godfrey, Donnie Edwards. Like I had some Keenan McCarty was at wide receiver. We had some real OGs who came in and kind of laid the foundation, man. So you saw that, and it really, really helped me on being a professional side of things and how to hold court and how to do things the right way.
Man, it's something that so many teammates of the greats in sports would always say. It's like, hey, it's not about what they do on the game day. It's about what we see them doing every single day in practice and the full 100% intensity, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they talk about Kobe and Michael and LeBron. They all get that feedback too.
So LT one day in practice, and I'm a rookie, so I don't know. I'm just seeing him do this stuff for the first time. He catches the ball at the swing pass at the backfield, one hand over the shoulder, bop here, bring it in, jumps in the air, jump cut, go right off his right foot, and I'm like, hold on, right. And I'm looking around. I'm like, did anybody see that shit? That was my exact word. I'm tapping all the guys. I'm like, did you? Because you cut right on your right foot. Normally you go right. You push up. I said no. He one-handed it, jumped in the air, did this, went right off the right foot. And I said, oh, did he? And nobody acted like nothing happened because they were so used to seeing it.
Wow.
So used to seeing it, and so. That to me, why it was so amazing playing with him, because by the time you got to the game, it's like, dude, he did that on Wednesday. He did it on Thursday. And you see it over and over again. It just make you want to pick up what you're doing, and make you want to do more. And then seeing Antonio Gates and all these, I mean, we had a squad. We had a really, really good group of guys.
Yeah, man. I remember it was so fun to watch, and with all that inspiration around you and all these guys, I mean, you came in hot, right? You came in, had a hot start to your career, but then you kind of got bogged down with a lot of injuries, right? And that kind of floated with you for the latter part of your career.
Yeah,
I'm mostly interested in the resilient side of this and the mental management you had with dealing with these injuries when you had all this hype right off the bat.
Yep.
Like, how did you deal with going into surgery mentally and after?
Well, so what happened was the 07 Titans game. We were playing the Titans, and Jeff Fisher, who's the head coach there, I went off, and I ended up hitting Vince Young.
Yeah, Vince Young, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what happened was he rolled out on the passing play, and the offensive lineman was still blocking me, right? So if anybody ever go back to 07 Titans game, they'll see it. So I'm pass rushing normal because I'm thinking it's a pass. What happened was this offensive lineman was not supposed to still block. It was an empty rollout. If that happened, I would have pulled up and I saw that he didn't have the ball. Lineman is still blocking me, so I accidentally run into Vince Young, and I broke a rib or two of his. So, I'm going down, and mind you, I know Vince. Like, we're not best friends. We're close now, but at the time, we're not best friends. But I know him. We got a bunch of mutual friends and all that. Like, so we're not playing dirty games or nothing like that. So it was a true accident, but he ended up getting hurt. And I just remember this look that Jeff Fisher was giving me on the side, like walking on the field. And I'm like, dude, what are you looking at me for? It's an accident. I would never hit somebody late or try to injure. Like, I don't play those type of games. But anyway, the two offensive linemen, Kevin Mawai and Stewart, who's the left tackle, they came and blocked me the very, very, like 2 plays later, 20, 30 yards away from the ball. And I ended up blowing my knee out.
Oh, jeez.
And so...
Oh, man, do you think that they tried to do that?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 100%. And they know. This is not like a hidden secret. I mean, Kevin Mawai apologized, but, he came back on Twitter a few weeks later, a month later, kind of... Because Chargers fans were letting him have it. He can't... Kevin Mawai can't step foot in San Diego or Southern California. He can't. He can't. He's gotten off of Twitter.
Oh gosh.
Because he's gotten attacked so much because people remember what happened.
Wow.
So regardless of if it was on purpose or not, it happened, right? So after that, that's when the compensation started to happen. So I came back for the knee. The knee was actually okay, but I tore my Achilles because of the compensation, right? I came back and I tore my Achilles. That's when they just started. I couldn't really stay healthy. I just from 2009 to really out 2012, I just could not stay healthy. My Achilles, my knee. But again, I'm not I rarely even talk about that. In fact, I'm not the type to I don't complain. Nothing's negative to me. If you give me like the worst situation in life, I'll find that 10% and I'm like, yo, what about this? I'm that, right? So I'm like, oh, it won't work. What if we do this? It's always like something else.
No.
I'm not I'm never negative about anything, ever. That's just that's who I am. So that happened. So I didn't really dwell on that a whole lot. Now, what I would feel like sometimes when the Hall of Fames come up or I look back, we didn't get a ring, those type of things, like, maybe if I had 2 more healthy years, I probably would have got a gold jacket, right? So you think about those type of things. But that bothered me then around that time period than I do now. I'm more removed from it. But I think that what the thing, if you want to look at the positives of that, is that most people would have been done after that 2009-2010 season. I mean, I came back and played, additional years after that. And don't get me wrong, I was hobbling around it sometimes, but I was effective enough to play at the highest level around the highest level guys. And they told me I went to get my knee checked out in Minnesota. I went to Miami. They were like, Shawne, your knee is bad. It's bad. And I ended up getting the surgery, but by that time it was so worn down, it was so beat up that I just couldn't play like I did, right? And so a lot of them, including Dr. Andrews and some of the most renowned surgeons in the world, they were just trying to figure out how I was even still playing. Yeah. I mean, and so that part of me being resilient is just really who I am as a person. It doesn't matter if injury or something happens. I'm just a resilient person. And I'll keep, I always got this quote that You can't beat someone that won't quit, right? You can't win. Somebody just won't stop. They will keep coming, keep getting up over and over. You can't beat them. There's no way. It's nothing you can do to that person because no matter how bad you knock them down, they are getting up again and they're coming at it again. And that's me. I'll never stop. And there's nothing that can happen or get me to stop. Yeah. As long as I got my health and I got my 2 legs, my arms, I can get up and do something about it, right? And that's just my attitude towards everything.
For sure. How's it doing today?
I feel great now, but then again, I don't got to go tackle nobody, right? I mean, I'll go and I'll spar, a couple days a week. I feel great, health-wise. But you do lose, especially when you tear your Achilles, you lose that part of your explosion during the game. Like, I can go out and play right now. I can go out and play a game. I can give you 20 or 30 plays, but my 20, 30 plays is not going to look like it did when I played.
Sure.
I'm just out there. I'll make some plays once in a blue moon, but I won't be effective. I won't be explosive. I wouldn't be a game changer anymore. That's how it was towards the end of my career. Yeah. I wasn't a game changer.
Man. Yeah, and speaking of how you train today, you do some sparring, you're obviously very involved in fighting MMA. You had mentioned some stuff on some other podcasts you were on that I thought was interesting, and it was about fight training and how it supports football.
Yeah.
I want to hear what your perspective is on that and why maybe football players, maybe specifically on defense or linebackers, could benefit from doing this type of training and getting better with their hands maybe.
Yeah, I think like, combat sports, mainly jiu-jitsu and any side of really the combat sports is very humbling. It can humble the hell out of you because you can take the best athlete in the world and you get in there with somebody that's not even a black belt, a brown belt. Yeah. I mean, whatever, right? Or I joke now because it was a Division II AA college wrestler. It was 190 pounds soaking wet, maybe 185. Yeah. When I first started, took me to the ground and kicking my ass. And there was nothing I can do about it. And I was so frustrated. I'm bigger than this dude, stronger and more athletic. And he just kept taking me to the ground. There was nothing I can do about it. And you get humbled. I think that the sport really humbles you, and that's what attracted me to it because I always want to get better in something. And so when I realized that I wasn't better than somebody else, it just wanted me to. I wanted to keep at it. And my first day out training was with Randy Couture.
That's right.
My very first day training MMA, and you couldn't have a better situation than that, right? Yeah. I mean. Randy was still competing at the time, so he was still peak Randy. Man. And so to get in there and learn just the nuances of the technique and how far advanced he was. I mean, again, bigger, stronger, faster, more explosive, everything to Randy Couture. And again, it was nothing. I was tired after pummeling, dude. Before we even started, we were pummeling.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, man, y'all have a good. Hey, we ain't got going yet. We just warming up. I said, man, I'm gassed. Yeah. And so I think the sport really, really humbles you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and it's cool to hear that from someone like you who's a, massive football star. And I mean, that's one thing I learned too, just getting into jiu-jitsu. It's like, my goodness, these guys half my size. The little techniques that they use that are so effective. It's incredible. And, I'm also interested in how did you gain this reputation of being into fighting and being good at it, right? Yeah. To the point where they were actually talking about some bouts for you, right? In bare knuckle and in Bellator. Yeah. Right? How did those come to be?
What happened was I initially just did it to help my hand-eye coordination be more violent as a pass rusher with my hands. I want to be more active with my hands. And obviously get my endurance up and stuff like that. I mean, all the things that were going to help me be a better football player. I never thought, that I would fall into the sport like I did. Now, my uncles were professional boxers, so I grew up around fighting, right, but not MMA. And so I just literally did it, trying it out, and seeing it. And then too, I just did a little bit more. I got just so many off-seasons, started sparring. Yeah, I started doing more. And when I retired in 2012, I think that if I didn't have my TV gigs, my TV jobs, I went to NFL Network. I was working with the WWE Network, so I had a bunch of the TV stuff. I was shooting sitcoms and all kind of stuff. I mean, I was very active. I think if I didn't have a lot of that going on, I would have rolled right into fighting right away because it was something that was natural to me. You get what I'm saying? Like, you ever come across a lot of these guys and fighters or whatever, and they just very calm. Yeah. And because they just have a fighting spirit about them, and they don't need to be riled up. They don't need, it's like, hey, let's go.
Yep.
And that's always been my attitude. And so fighting would have been very easy for me to kind of roll into because I already enjoyed it. And, you know, going to spar, even now, I was working and sparring and stuff at Extreme Couture last week and worked with a lot of the pro guys. And, you know, I'll spar some time up at Top Rank, and I'll jump in there. I still feel good to do it.
Yeah.
It's in me to do it. And a lot of people, I was talking to Channing Crowder the other day, and it's like, man, how do you do that? You know, get punched in the face and everything else. I said, dude, well, the object is not to get punched in the face. That's the whole goal, right? Yeah. But I think just for me to stay disciplined and stay active and stay competing in something. The truth is, why a lot of the guys have problems when they retire, because they can't compete anymore. There's not a regiment anymore. And so when you take that away from guys who've been living that lifestyle since they were 10, 12 years old, probably, they struggle.
Yeah.
And they try to figure out who they are now that they don't have this thing. And it was, for me, it was never about playing football or being part of a team. It was the competition. It was the preparing, working out during the off season so I can kick your ass.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was more important than anything else, man. I wanted to compete. So I think with a lot of these guys, if they finally, we see it now, more and more football players either doing MMA, boxing, or something. It's happening. More and more guys.
I was going to be my next question.
Oh, yeah. More and more guys. Le'Veon Bell just had a boxing match. He's got one coming up.
Like ex-players.
Ex-players, yeah. Northcutt, that played down there training in Florida. You see Greg Hardy, and people can say what they want. Greg Hardy, 3 or 4 fights to UFC's first were damn good. He looked really good. Yeah. And he started getting knocked out and went downhill from there. Yeah. But you ask some guys that were really successful at it, and you're going to see more. You're going to see more guys when they retire because the opportunity to make money. That was another thing why I didn't fight. I mean, I remember asking Bellator in 2014 and 15 for $500,000, maybe 16, for $500,000. I said for $500,000
for a fight.
For a fight, yeah. And they looked at me like I was crazy. It was like,
again, you were too ahead of the game.
I was just too ahead of my time. But everything that's happening now is what I was pitching Scott Coker and those guys then. Guys, $500,000 what pay-per-views. You find me another former athlete, a WWE star, and let us go at it for 3 rounds.
Yeah,
everybody's paying for it.
Oh yeah,
everybody.
Well, people like, I mean, all these guys. Jake Paul kind of got this thing going, and I mean, even just the stuff with Floyd and Tyson, the stuff they're getting into.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, again, it's me being 10 years ahead of my time because guess what now? That is, if you're an athlete with a name, or you're a YouTuber with a name with a big following, you're a celebrity with a name with a big following, you're fighting, the conversation starts at $500,000. That's not even negotiable.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, we're talking like 7 figures and up now.
Yeah.
Right? And so when I asked for it, because I had the whole plan on why they would sell a bunch of pay-per-views, they looked at me like I was crazy. And like most things, when I pitch something and it's way too early for people to understand, they look at you like you're crazy until you do it. And now everybody, when it happens, it's like, oh, we get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's interesting. So, you know, after that phase of you might be a fighter yourself, you might enter these competitions, you know, then eventually 2019, you started your own fight promotion.
Yeah.
Right? Lights Out Xtreme Fighting. And along with other businesses with the, you know, sports streaming TV and the insurance. But when did it click for you that you wanted to start your own promotion?
Well, what happened was a good thing came out of me working with Bellator. I was working with them for almost 2 years or close to it as an ambassador. Mm-hmm. So I got an opportunity to spend a lot of time around a bigger organization. So I knew a bunch of the fighters already, knew a bunch of the managers, knew a bunch of the gyms. So when it comes to talent and prospects, I was good there.
Got it. That's a huge piece.
A huge piece, a very, very huge piece. I knew who the best matchmakers were, who the managers to work with, who were paying in their asses, or the gyms, you know, the easier to work with. I knew all that side of it. What I didn't know is how to negotiate a venue deal. You know, which venues are union and which ones to go into, which ones to stay out of.
Yeah.
You know, how to set up certain parts of the ticket sales or apparel sales is on site. You know, a lot of the other stuff I learned work with Bellator over the 2 years. It's work with, I was, spending time in Viacom's office a lot. So that's when the whole idea of streaming and network TV started to come in place.
Damn.
I was fortunate, man, too, because when I retired, I got straight into broadcasting. When I was at NFL Network for a couple of years, I was at Fox Sports for a couple of years. I was at ESPN for a couple of years. I was at, so WWE Network when they launched, I was with them. Mm-hmm. So me having an extensive background in television and broadcasting and TV, whether it's linear or streaming, I knew all the players already because I work with them.
Yeah.
And so when I'm launching my new streaming service, my new free ad-supported streaming service, it was like, okay, I know what to do. Now I got to get the right people to help me build it, which I already knew. So that's how we jumped out. We got 30 plus fast channels on there with motocross, motorsports, and TNA wrestling's on there, World Poker Tour, and your fishing, hunting, Outdoor America, Pursuit. We got so much on there, 250 sports movies and documentaries, and we're on every major smart TV in the world. That hasn't been done in 3 months. No one is getting that type of distribution and those content partners in 3 months. And that comes from, one, having the fortitude to launch it, because I think that a lot of people in the streaming space probably thought I was crazy because a lot of our fights were at Fubo, at Bally's, at Amazon Freevee, at MSG, at some of the other platforms. So, when it kind of got out there that I was launching my own, I'm sure that everybody thought I was batshit crazy, but it turned out pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the part that you said about figuring out who can work for you, who can help you, how hard was that? That's been one big theme in my show. I focus on general entrepreneurship, but with an emphasis on people who have a background in pro sports or, health, wellness, fitness, and so forth. And learning to delegate is one of the hardest things that I come across with everybody, because people who are entrepreneurs, they like to have control. Right?
Yeah.
So how did you approach that at that point?
I think for me, first of all, having a mentality to just get things done, right? And that comes from being an athlete my whole life and just going, regimented, disciplined. I'm waking up at this point in time. I'm doing this at this point in time. Very strict and disciplined when it comes to time management. Very, very, I'm in the gym still 6 days a week. I have a very structured lifestyle still, very. Mm-hmm. And learning how to delegate that time, but also too, team, man. I've been leading a team since I was 10.
Right.
That's, even now, some of the people to work with that work at Lights Out, either sports or Lights Out Extreme Fighting, I hate to be called boss or anything like that. It's really leading a team. And once you notice you can't do it by yourself, you need the right people. Mm-hmm. Because everybody has to, just like on football, right? That play could be drawn up sweet as hell. It could be the perfect play. If that right guard misses his block, it's done. Or that running back is supposed to pick up the defensive end off the edge or chip him off the edge, he get a free rush, he's going to hit the quarterback. And that wide receiver could have been wide open downfield. And running a business, it is the same exact way.
Yeah.
And so you're leading a team and you're just staying on top of everybody that is just guiding them in the right direction, and hope that you bring people in that have enough experience to do their job, but also to have the attitude to want to. Because somebody can be very good at their job because they know a lot. Yeah. That'll make them good because they, maybe not want to work. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're lazy. Maybe they, and I go down this avenue all the time and keeping people motivated. Take advantage of momentum. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're in a good spot, man. Now let's really, really crank it up. Let's really, really go. And you got some people hey, let's do it. You got some people that just, you got to keep holding their hand, babysitting. Come on, guys, it's so different. You think I haven't played games? We're breaking down the huddle and I'm getting everybody hyped, and I look over to the guy and he over in the corner with his, and he's not. You can tell he's not in the game at all.
Yeah,
same difference. Mm-hmm. You got to go. Hey, grab him. Hey, come on. We got to play in 10 minutes, man. Yeah. Let's bring it. Bring your shit, right? Bring your lunch pail. We got to go get after it. So it's the same thing when you're talking about staff and team. Not everybody wakes up in the morning motivated, and you have to find different ways to motivate different people. And again, coming from the NFL, the guys who aren't motivated, the guys who aren't getting their job done, what happens? Mm-hmm. You get cut.
Yeah.
So it's very much so very similar. And I'll say this, man. I think that playing football, but especially playing in the NFL, has helped me a lot. business wise, and certain aspects of the business you don't understand, but whether it's you're not fitting into the future plans, or maybe it's you might get cut or let go because of the dollar amount, because it's a number they got to hit. So it really taught me a lot, man. I was fortunate because a lot of people, and then too, you're playing, and there's nothing bigger than the NFL here in football here in this country. In the NFL for sure, but in football in general, there's nothing bigger here. So you're constantly playing on the biggest stages, and I don't take the lessons I've learned from doing that at all for granted.
Yeah, it makes sense, man. I mean, yeah, the level of intensity in the NFL, the cutthroat nature, and then just the basic management skills that you got, especially since you were actually a leader on your team. You weren't just one of the players kind of on the back of the line, right? Yep. So that probably was a big reason why you could translate those management skills into your businesses, like you were describing. So specifically for building a fight promotion, though, I'm interested in the specific steps to build one from scratch. But before you share those, I'm interested, what have you taken away from Dana White? And like, what have you learned from him about how to do this successfully?
You know what's crazy? Me and Dana, we got a really good relationship. When we talk, I don't ask him questions about the fight business at all. Let me give you a good example. You know how when Aaron Rodgers came in and Brett Favre was there, and everybody's like, "Yeah, Brett got to show him the ropes." Yeah, Brett no, Brett doesn't. Brett ain't had to do a damn thing. He doesn't have to do anything at all. If Aaron was smart and you're allowed to be around, you watch and listen and look and learn. If you're smart, you don't have to say much. I mean, sometimes when I go, see Dana, he might be in pitch meetings, dude. He's still grinding. Like, it's not like he's, show up during a fight day and, no, he's still grinding. Yeah. He's still in that office. And, we may have a meeting and he has some time because he's running over and meeting, his pitch meeting, whatever he's doing. He's still grinding. And so for me, he didn't have to tell me anything. I'm like, oh, well, if he made it to the point he's at, he grew a crazy, big, successful business and he's still grinding. How can I relax ever? Yeah. And so, half the time we talk about stuff, it's business related. Yeah. But it's hardly, I'm asking questions about the fight business, about we're doing everything right? So I come from TV and production. And so I'll tell you this, and a lot of people don't know this. I mean, I have a hand in everything that's happening, from the sponsorships being brought in. I bring those sponsorships in, all the streaming services and partners we do work with outside of Lights Out Sports TV, I negotiated those deals. We're on just about every major streaming service a week later after our fights air. And so having an extensive background in TV and production, I can come in and know if it's a 3-camera setup, a 5-camera setup, whatever the rigging is, whatever up or down links we're looking at, whatever signals and transmission have to go out, everything that happens, it's through me. This is something I have my hands in and everything. And so with us, it's not how big we're going to be or how successful we're going to be. You have to be patient and the time. I see it's like somebody running through a tunnel. You can see the light, but there's still a long, dark tunnel you got to get through, even though you see that little tiny speck of light at the end. And sometimes people aren't willing to go through it, and they just want to get straight to the light. And it's not how big we are, how successful. We're going to be big. We're bigger. We're going to be, insanely successful. I'm not worried about that. It's just we have to be patient and do it the right way. Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like you have embraced the strategy of vertical integration, which is something I talked a lot about with Jeff Fenster. This is what he does with his businesses. But you're using your name, your celebrity, your relationships to benefit this infrastructure of your businesses serving each other. Yeah, right? And too, I joked with somebody the other day, and they was like, "Oh yeah, you got it because you're Shawne Merriman." I was like, "I can get into that meeting because I'm Shawne Merriman. I can get there." But man, when you sit across in that boardroom, you better have your shit together because some of the people that I'm meeting with on a daily basis, you get ripped. Yeah, they'll rip you to shreds. You go in those meetings, you're not prepared, or what you're presenting them is not up to par. So some of these guys I'm meeting with are billions and billions and billions of assets under their umbrella in companies that they've sold and acquired. Tens of billions. And so you get in the room with these guys, it's hard to do to get the meeting. Yeah. So getting the meeting is not the problem. Is that when you get there, what are you pushing? Are you legit? You know, are your ideas and what you have going? Are you making money? What do your next 3 to 5 years look like? So it doesn't stop. You know, it's like you get in those meetings, man, and just because, you know, I might be somebody's favorite player in that room, don't mean that they won't rip me down the middle if our business plan or my ideas and what I want to do is not correct. It's the same thing. So I'm just like everybody else. When I get in there, I'm selling my ass off.
Yep.
You know, I'm pushing, telling my beliefs and where I think the streaming business is going. I think where the fight business is going. And I have to show my reasonings on why. And you know, so far it's been great, you know, the way we're moving. But again, it doesn't stop. You know, I get in these meetings, I have to do just like everybody else.
Yeah. So, you know, you're also talked about what your longer term vision is for extreme fighting. But, you know, you mentioned that you're not really trying to even compete with UFC. I mean, naturally you guys are, but you are kind of owning the space of being a feeder into the UFC, right? With these fighters. So could you share like what you see this long term and what your goal is with that?
Yeah. And I say this because we talk about branding and doing all. Most of the time when I go places now in public, no matter where I'm at in the country, more people call me Lights for Lights Out than they do Shawne. Most, you know, no matter where I'm at, it's Lights Out first. So they say Shawne Merriman, you know, it's Lights Out. And,
that's funny.
And again, it happens because there's been so much branding, so much, you know, you got to prove, you got to keep backing it up, right? You got to keep it out there. Then also too, if I wasn't playing Lights Out in the field, nobody would call me that. You can't call yourself Lights Out, and you know, it's like Rucker Park. You're in New York. If you got a nickname, you better earn that shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those. And so the branding aspect, this is a whole different ballgame. And so with the UFC, they have branded themselves in this market that no one can ever be bigger than them. They just won't. You know, somebody can come and drop 5 or 10 billion on the league tomorrow, and you still won't have the market share of the UFC because, okay, you pay the fighters a lot more money, but how are you going to continue that revenue, right? How are you going to be profitable? How are you going to put something back into the company, right? So, or the branding and the buildup, the UFC embedded, the Dana White Contender Series. It's a package that they instilled in the people's mind for so long that they've done so good of a job of it that it's the casual fan that just doesn't know the MMA space. They think UFC is the discipline.
Yeah.
So like even when I'm back home,
Google. It's like Googling something, right?
Yeah. So even when I'm back home and I got friends that know very well of what I do, they was like, oh yeah, I seen that UFC thing you got on TV the other day. Right there, this is how well the UFC has done. And branded in. Because I'm so into branding and marketing and on that side of it, you know, there's only like 10 or 20 companies probably ever that you can identify with that company's name as that product.
Right.
And think that's the whole industry. It doesn't happen that often. So when it gets to that point, no one's ever going to be number one, like Kleenex. That's the company name, but people actually think that that's the tissue.
Right.
You know, Nike, right? Xerox when it was around. Like, there's things that is branded so well and they've penetrated the market so well that you think that company is the name of the industry. That's what the UFC has done. That's how great of a job they've done. So it's not about competing with them, right? We have different verticals that we're building with technology, right? We got chips in the gloves. I partnered with the company Shot Tracker. We're putting chips in the gloves. We can measure speed, power, punch, velocity, impact, all kind of stuff. You know, we're now legal to bet on the 6 different states or 7 different states now. I have a sponsorship AI company coming where the sponsors change on the mat during the fights while you're watching. So it's not physically changing, but what the audience see is the sponsorships are different every fight.
Oh, interesting.
Through the night.
Wow.
So you can actually be successful. And by the way, it's on Lights Out Sports TV. We had, what's really cool, we had Jordan Wisely, the winner of the challenge champion from MTV.
Okay.
He did, because Jordan has a wrestling background. And so he did a simulcast. So I got a technology now that we've included to simulcast, like a Twitch type of deal, but all in stream. So like you don't have to go to a third party. You can log in on Lights Out Sports TV, and we have influencers commentating over the fights.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so we ran our first test a couple weeks ago at our last fight, and it was a huge hit.
Does that exist somewhere else?
No.
Wow.
No, we ran a test on it, and it worked out great. You know, we started just a couple guys. It was Jordan Wisely, another kid, Aiden, who we work with.
Aiden Ross?
No.
Oh, okay.
He's a He's got influencer, but big in the fight business. Does a lot of great work. And so we had them two doing it, and it was great. So now we know that we can get up to 10 people on there, influencers, to literally go. You can go to Lights Out Sports, and they'll have their bar there where you can click on them, watch them broadcast over the fights.
That's sick.
And again, we're not trying to compete with anybody. We're trying to be innovative, stay ahead of the curves, and grow our own viewership and our own fan base.
Yeah.
And we want to keep giving the fans and people watching our fights more opportunity to get involved in what we're doing. Right? Very interactive. And we looked at growing fan bases that way and not trying to compete with the UFC because I don't, in my opinion, and maybe I could be wrong. In my opinion, I don't think anybody's ever going to compete with the UFC, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, what a good way to answer that, because that was going to be what I was going to move that question into, was how do you actually differentiate yourself, or extreme fighting? And I mean, you're bringing in these innovative ideas that no one else is doing. That's incredible. I can't wait to see how that looks.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's we got some stuff here in the next three months, the next 90 days, really, that's just going to turn the heads of like what the hell's going on. I mean, outside of the gloves, I think it was going to change the game because you got the whole betting aspect, micro betting during the fight.
Yeah, because now you can bet on how hard someone punches.
There you go. You figured it out. I mean, you get it. And
that's
so
cool.
that's going to happen for sure. And then too, what happens when people, I'm not oblivious to like people betting on every. I mean, I got friends that bet on stuff, and they just. I'm not. Give me a baccarat table and I'm happy. Blackjack or something. I'm good. Never really gambled too much on sports and stuff like that, but I know plenty of people to do.
Yeah.
So we know that people are going to sit around and be betting on these gloves. How fast? What's the velocity of that punch? Is it going to get over 32, or is that punch is going to get anywhere close to 40 Gs? Yeah. In strength and power.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So just really, really cool stuff coming, and like again, we see the light. The light's there. But we want to perfect every single thing that we're doing right now, so we don't miss a beat.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and you probably, a lot of other opportunities, like you said earlier, licensing potentially, right?
Tons.
Yeah,
tons.
With the tech.
With the gloves. Once we got the data accurate, we're for sure going to go out to other leagues and organizations.
Hell yeah.
And then too, really scale this thing and open it up. We want to do something to change the way people look at combat sports. And people have tried to do stuff like this, but it's been a lot of gimmicky mess. Having a partner with Shot Tracker, so we already know the technology is real.
Yeah.
Now we just had to change frequencies, dial it in where it's combat sports specific. That's where a lot of the testing, that's where a lot of the beta stuff comes in, and the opportunities on the back end. And we got to really drill that thing down, because we know that once we get it down pat for combat sports, we know this is adaptable across all of combat sports.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's incredible, man. Well, I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see how this works out, and the attention it gets for combat sports in general. I'm going to wrap this up with a couple of questions that I like to ask every guest, but one is, do you have an entrepreneurial life hack that goes against the mainstream belief that you could share with the audience?
Yeah, I just feel like nothing's too big, and if there's an opportunity big enough to go for it, and I like to swing real big. I just think that you swing big enough, one of them is bound to hit. And one of the main things is people have to, because people get a lot more opportunities than they think, but they're not ready for it. A lot more opportunities. So it has to be that kind of, you've been working. You've been working so hard that you can take advantage of the opportunity. Because I think that a lot of opportunities come across people's table that they just aren't prepared for, because they haven't been working, haven't been preparing for it. So that's one of the biggest things I would say, swing, especially if you're in a good place. If you're in college, or, you got your parents taking care of you, you got somebody taking care of you. That's when you go big, if you can. Because guess what? One of those are bound to hit, and if you fall on your ass, you're covered.
Yeah.
So I would tell anybody, if you can, and the ones who can't, you got bills, you got kids, you got family. So you can't swing as much as you want to at the bigger stuff, because you got a family to think about. But the ones who don't, you don't have kids, you don't have family, you got somebody supporting you, you got maybe some money saved up. Swing like hell.
Yep.
Swing like hell, man, because one of those big ones is bound to hit, and that big one could be a life changer. and a game changer for what you're doing. So a lot of people, say, try this, try that. I'm like, I don't, you can only be great at one or two things, like great, where you're really, really great. So for me, it's been Lights Out Sports and it's been Lights Out Xtreme Fighting. And trust me, I get so many, oh man, you should do this. And we got these. I'm like, no, it's just, if you get great at two things and those two things get big and get massive, then you can go and play around with stuff and get now it's more of,
Now you're just an investor.
Now you're just an investor, right? And you can play around a lot more, but you got to get great at two things. And I've always struggled working with or working around or just even dealing with anybody that's just doing so much. Because you can't be great at 10 things. You just can't. You can be great at two things. And you might have a third that you do. Like, for me, the third would be insurance, right?
Yep.
That I'm consistent with. But the first two things that I do, and the main two things I do is Lights Out Xtreme Fighting and Lights Out Sports TV.
Right.
Because I know I can be great at those two things.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's motivating as hell to hear you describe it that way. So thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
Also, one thing is, taking a lesson out of Jeff Fenster's book and his expertise with relationship capital. I like to ask, is there somebody in your network who you would recommend I also have on my podcast, the Nichols and Dimes Show?
Yeah, I would, probably the founder of Family First Life, Shawne Mike.
Okay.
I would say if you can get him, I even connect you guys too. But he's another one, man. It was, when I got into the insurance industry with Family First Life and started working with them, that, before you know the company or know the industry, you kind of gravitate to certain people that's like you as far as believing in getting things done. One of the funniest stories, and what really made me like say, okay, I'm doing this. I'm with this company. I didn't know too much about the company. I knew about him and his story he gave me. He said, and I feel the same way. I never do anything or tell anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do ever, right? And he was telling me one time that his son had a baseball coach that never played baseball, and he pulled him off the team. It's like, okay, how can you coach baseball? You never even played the game. It's like me. I'm not going to tell somebody, hey, I think you should go work out in the gym and work on this. If you're skinny as hell and you ain't never worked on these things, like, don't tell somebody to go work out. Like, you got to live it.
Yeah.
You got to be in it. For one, knowledge base and information, but two, to get people to believe in what you're doing. Like, hey, I did this. I did this at a high level. I did this in this industry. You have a little bit more steam behind you when you actually do something. So I would say try to get Shawne Mike on if you can.
All right, man. Well, I'll follow up with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got it.
Well, cool, Shawne. Amazing to meet you and have this conversation. And thanks for sharing just some of the wisdom you've gathered through coming from the NFL and into your businesses. It's been a really fun journey to watch and see what you're doing today. And there's so much more ahead, especially with the innovation that you're bringing into what you're doing. So thanks so much, man.
You got it, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Nichols and Dimes Show. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and follow my Instagram page at Nichols and Dimes. The podcast Instagram page is at Nichols and Dimes Show. And please like any of the videos you come across on either platform and leave a comment, leave feedback. It helps me to improve and innovate and to continue to scale and bring more interesting guests to the Nichols and Dimes Show. Thank you all for the support, and we'll see you next time.